In this video I'm going to look at taking apart and repainting a chassis for a ready-to-run locomotive. So my Bagnall here is part built, but to match the rest of the logos in my fleet I need to take the chassis apart a little bit and repaint the main frames of it. So first off, the chassis I picked, I specifically picked this one because it has the blue wheels and cylinders. So fortunately I can leave those alone. Repainting wheels isn't the hardest job in the world, but it's a little bit fiddlier, and I'll come back to that later on. So the first step, always, test your chassis and make sure it works. If I can get decent contact, there we go. If it doesn't work, you probably want to do something about that before you void the warranty by taking it all apart and doing that. So the tools I've got here are smallish screwdriver. I should have a Phillips head one, I can't find one, so I've got a flathead one instead. A poking thing, hopefully I'm not going to need to use this, I might do, and a small set of pliers. Hopefully I won't need to use these either, but we might do later on. And you're probably more likely to need these if you're going to be taking the wheels off to repaint those. So, if we get this out of the loco chassis, which you do by removing these two screws here, this front one is actually hidden. I'll get the light over it a bit better. So this front one is hidden under the front coupling. So you can see there's a NEM coupling socket here. There's another one of those in the front that I've taken out of this dovetail slot here, and the screw is hidden underneath that. Next point to start getting the wheels out is these two screws here to get the keeper plate off the bottom. So let's take those out. Okay, I haven't got a small pot, but I have got an old 3D printed wagon carcass that I can use for this. So both these screws are identical, so I can just chuck them both in. I don't need to label which one's which. Let's rearrange our desk a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so let's pull this keeper plate out then. It's the first time I get to look at some of Formby's design on here as well. It's all a little bit clever. So, as you can see, this plate has the brake parts integrated into it. So if you need to repaint them, you can do that at this point. And then we can see the actual bare chassis block underneath. So we have a couple of little spring contacts here. Those touch onto, by the looks of it, this bit here, which is the little blackened etch where the pickups are. So there's one of those on both sides, and they connect up to here. So you don't want to get any paint or anything on those, otherwise it will stop the pickups working. Let's drop that to one side. Another useful thing you might want to do is Hornby tend to, well, everyone I suppose, tends to put loads and loads of grease in here, which is alright from a mechanical point of view, but it's also a bit unnecessary to have quite as much as they usually put in. So you might want to just scrape some of it out with a screwdriver. And hopefully you can see what I mean by that if you look here at the end of the gear. If we can focus. There's a load of it all wrapped around the end of the gear here and so on. I'm just going to see if I can tease some of that out. And they appear to have flooded this axle port with it as well. Which is all okay, it's going to run fine, but we'll see. So now our wheel sets should be nice and free to move, or to come out even. So you should be able to see now the bearings at each end, which sit sort of free in the chassis frame. So just need to work out what other bits we need to release here. So we need to release the cylinders, I think, because this assembly here is attached to the conrods. So the other thing you could do is remove all these hex screws, which is what the small pliers are for. If you've got the proper hex socket, that's great. If you haven't, you can usually do this with a small set of pliers. I'm not going to do that this time because the wheels and the conrods I'm happy with the colour of. So I'm going to try and remove those as one unit and just keep them together that way so I don't lose anything. So I'm just going to tip this over very carefully so the wheels don't drop out before I'm ready. And the cylinders are screwed on the front here. Hopefully you can see those two screws. There's one there and one there. So we're just going to pull those out now. There we go. So it comes off if you just pull it forwards, which will release it from there. So let's do that again, just in a slightly more controlled manner. So these little lugs at the back just sit in these corners here. So that this bit lifts up out of its bay here and pulls forward, and they just release. I think they are glued, which is why it came off with a bit of a jump. So you might want to just wiggle those around a little bit to loosen them first before you do that. You know how I said earlier that I wasn't going to take the conrods off? Well, now I'm going to take the conrods off. I've decided the red colour isn't really going to work in conjunction with the rest of the livery, so I think I'm just going to pull those off now. Just before I do, this is where we've got to with the rest of the chassis. I've painted the underboiler to match the rest of the loco, and it's had 2 coats of the frame colour on here. Not forgetting to do the base with the pickups in as well. So, to undo these, hopefully what you can see here, if I get my pointing tool out, if that will focus, they're little hexagon shaped screws in here. This one I've already loosened just to check I could actually do it, but hopefully you can see that turning there. So we just have to undo all of these, which is no small task but easily doable. Just to start them, I've been using the end of the pliers like that and just giving them a tiny little turn until they go on their own. And then I found just by pushing a finger into it and turning, it'll come out by itself. It's a bit of a long process and I have to go very carefully not to bend any of the parts, but let's give it a go. So we've got the Bagnall chassis done, or the Peckett chassis as it should be called I suppose, and we've weathered it a bit since you last saw it as well, which is much easier to do while the wheels are still off. I haven't done the wheels or the cylinders yet, but they'll get done when it gets put back together. So, oh, the other thing is I put the keeper plate back on to do the weathering so it's sort of matched between the rest of the chassis and that. So, now all that's left is reassembling. So we've got all the bits here. The conrods are a little bit stiffer than they were, but they should still be okay, hopefully. I guess we'll find out, won't we? So reassembly is just the same procedure you used to take it apart in the opposite order. So let's just get on with it. Okay, slight change of camera because the last one ran out of battery, but we're back together now. Wheels all turn nice and freely. If you do this, don't run into the same trap that I did. So all these little hex screws that hold the conrods on look identical. They're not. There are two shorter ones which go in the middle. Don't know how well you can see this, but the outer wheel sets just have a thread in them. The middle ones have a bit that sticks out, and that's the bit that needs the shorter one. So I had to go through and take all the screws back out, find the shorter ones, put them in first, and then put the rest in. But it should now work. Still fits the body nicely. Like that. So let's go and give it a test.